'Cause I'm yours to keep if you want to.
My government name?
Yeah, I mean, whatever you're comfortable with, you know. Your social security
yeah.
number, your address, your
Well,
security questions.
My name is Dominique Rashawn Davis, better known as Rush Davis.
Does your name does it come from any particular place?
Um,
Named after anybody or?
Well, my mom was just really big on keeping the QUE behind her children's names because her name was Monique.
Okay.
So it's Monique, Dominique, Martinique. It's my sister's name, you know.
Huh.
So she was all about keeping the QUEs. I don't know. But then the weirdest thing was, like, my name being Dominique, it's like the feminine form. It's like, because I think the masculine is the Italian version, which is Dominic.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, that's what she named me after. And then I guess she got the inspiration from Dominique Wilkins.
Okay.
Back in the day.
Okay.
So yeah, that's
basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I got my name from.
Cool.
And it's part of the reason why I feel a little distant from it to this day, just because, you know, as a kid, people just give you so much. You got a girl's name.
Sure.
La, la, la.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help that I'm gay, so it's just like, okay, there we go.
Interesting. Where were you born?
I was born in Alexandria, Louisiana.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I moved out here when I was 7, so I lived out there enough to get the swamp on me. You know what I mean?
What was it like living there?
My early memories of living in Louisiana, I would say, was just chaotic as fuck.
Oh,
Just
okay.
super chaotic. My dad went to jail when I was 3, and I didn't really know him. I had very early memories of him, but I really just spent a lot of time with my grandmother because my mom and my dad had me really young. My mom was 15.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my dad was 17. So they were both really young.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I thought my mom was my sister just because, you know, she was in and out, and she moved out here to LA for a little bit, where she's originally from.
Okay.
And I think it's worth mentioning, she's from out here, my dad's from New York.
Okay.
And they met out there and had me.
Huh. And is there a backstory to that? It seems
Well,
like an interesting place to arrive from LA and New York.
Well, if you can imagine, the 80s in both places were pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah.
So my understanding is both parents, both of my set of grandparents wanted to get them out of that environment.
Okay.
And bring them to Louisiana, where there would be a little bit more, you know, stability, I guess you could say. But they found trouble because, you know, my mom and my dad, they're both wild as fuck. So they definitely found trouble out there. And, you know, I guess they brought that city energy to a very small town.
Yeah.
So there's still stories that float around to this day about them.
Huh.
You know.
Okay.
So.
And then, born there till 7 years old, then 7 years old was moving back to LA?
I moved out here, yeah.
And that's like what, basically early elementary school? What was life like being here at that time?
The interesting thing was, when we first moved out here, we moved to, we stayed with one of my aunts in Compton. And they tried to enroll me in school out there. And because the school system was so trash, they tried to skip me up to 4th grade.
Holy shit. What grade would you have been in?
2nd.
Okay.
Yeah, I just was like, it was they tried to skip me up to 4th. My mom wasn't having it because she was just like, this little kid.
Not going to 4th grade.
Yeah, no, because they're already on some shit in 4th grade in Compton. It's like, you know, so they weren't having that. So they kept me in the grade I was in. And then that area was just, again, extremely chaotic when I was a kid. And coming from Louisiana, even though our neighborhood was still bad as fuck, I was just like from one bad neighborhood to a different bad neighborhood, but the energy was different, you know? So I just remember being stressed out as a kid, just always stressed the fuck out, like worried about the adults in my family, worried about, like, you know, the kids that I was going to school with, because I was really perceptive. And I feel like, you know, growing up with my grandmother and having like adult conversations as a kid just made me a little bit more aware of what people were kind of going through, I guess.
Sure.
You know, so when I would be going to school and I would like talk to certain kids, I'd be like, okay, something's not right with that one, you know? And then I'd try to be their friend, and then some wild shit would go down. Like they'd stick a pencil up my nose or some shit.
Oh,
and
shit.
then I'd be like, you know, I was like, get me the fuck out of here. Like I remember one time my mom asked me, she was like, how was school today? Did you have a good day? And I was like, Mom, how can I?
Oh, wow.
You know? So, yeah.
And that's like at that early second grade type age?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Interesting. And your sister's older or younger?
Younger.
And was she brought out here too when you came out here?
Mm-hmm.
So you guys both came out here same time. You were 7, she was 5.
No, she was... How old was Martinique?
She's not
Martinique had to be like 2.
Okay, so I don't know why I thought heard you say she was 2 years younger than you, but
yeah,
maybe
no. Yeah, no.
Okay, so she wasn't in school. Were you guys far enough apart that it was not really a relationship you had throughout school?
Yeah, no. My sister was also pretty aware as a kid, so we definitely had like a relationship. But you know, because of the age difference, our interests were a little different.
Sure.
But it was more antagonizing each other than anything. It was like mental war games.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my brother and I are 2 years apart, so pretty much throughout all of like our schooling and everything like that, it was like we had common friends both ways. We all got along really well.
Yeah,
like, so it's always interesting to see like what the dynamics are like with people who have a bit more of that age gap.
Yeah.
You know?
I think what it is more than anything is just like, you know, our intake, things we were interested in. And I feel like a lot of me rubbed off on her when I was young because I was a wild kid. Like mentally more than anything, you know? So I definitely played a lot of mind games with her and shit like that. And so she has crazy mental dexterity. Like if you talk to her, she's pretty perceptive and she can feel through some wild shit. So
what kind of stuff were you into when you were younger?
I was into weird shit, man. Like I'll never forget. I found this book at the library, and it was called Mystic Places in the World.
Okay.
And it was just like stuff about the pyramids and Masons and like all this different shit. And I was obsessed with that type of shit. I loved like the History Channel. So I was like, they used to call that my babysitter. So I would just like sit in front of that and watch like all kinds of theories of how this thing got here and that thing was built and aliens and all kinds of shit. So I was really into that and really into music.
Even from an early age.
Mm-hmm. And religion too. But like, anything that had to do with what makes this shit tick is like what I was into when I was young. And that never really stopped. It just kind of got more informed over time, I guess you could say.
Was there anybody in your life that was pushing music in your way, or was it just self-discovery? What was the kind of way it came into your life? Was it as a school class and you were learning to play an instrument or sing or choir or church, or what was like?
So I definitely started singing in church when I was 3.
Oh shit.
Because the music bug got to me early from my parents because they were both young, you know, and just coming from a big family, like having a lot of different cousins and cousins' friends always around, and everybody's always playing music and different types of music too. So I was definitely like absorbing the palette from all of the different adults that were around me at the time, or the older kids that were around me.
Sure.
So when I was in church, and I would always hear like the youth choir do the thing. Every time I would see the youth choir do the thing, I always wanted to sing. So I would I'm pretty sure I got baptized so that I could sing because I remember.
What do I have to do to go?
Right, exactly. So I remember in our church, when you got baptized, you had to like find a position in the church, basically like even as a kid, like there was some role you had to play in the church after you got baptized. So I wanted to join the choir. So I got baptized, and then the Sunday after I got baptized, then I got to lead the kids choir.
Whoa.
And then I kept leading the kids choir every time, you know. So that's how I got started with that.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, for you, has it been Has it been pretty much all music ever since? Was there other things that were at some point in time, other things you looked at career-wise or like fell into hobby-wise, or it was just really like, I mean, obviously starting to sing at 3 is pretty much like a direct calling, you know?
Yeah.
It's like you found that connection.
Yeah, quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was always around. But I mean, I was also interested in other things that dealt with music, like dance and production, songwriting. I was always paying attention to every aspect of it. You know, music videos. Like, I was never just watching anything or just listening to anything. I was like definitely like taking it in, peeling it apart, and trying to figure out, you know, how everything ticked. You know, I spent a lot of time reading credits and you know, in CDs and albums, you know, just to see like who were the people that were involved that made certain things. And that started at a very young age. Like from the time I learned how to read, I was like already like in albums reading, you know. So
Is that something you think you picked up from observing somebody, or that was like something you just naturally were curious about and wanted to
I feel like it was a natural curiosity because again, I spent most of my time with my grandmother and my grandfather, and they were older, and so if it wasn't like watching stories with my grandma or like, you know, hanging out with my grandfather while he's like hunting or like doing different shit like that, I was like just in the house doing stuff to try to stay out of trouble because I hated getting in trouble with them because it meant getting my ass beat. And so I would just occupy my time, and the way I would occupy my time is like research, you know.
Yeah. Wait, so hunting in what regard? Like, what was it? That was Louisiana? That was
Louisiana.
I was going to say, because I was like thinking,
Yeah.
where are you going hunting in LA? What kind of thing are you getting into?
That was in Louisiana.
Okay. And so were they were in Louisiana, you moved to California, did they stay in Louisiana, or did they come
for
to
a little bit? They
okay.
stayed in Louisiana. I would say maybe like 2-3 years after we left, and then they moved to LA to help my parents with me and my sister, because I was like a whole ass latchkey kid. Like at in 3rd grade, I was like walking home by myself, like letting myself in the house, getting my food together. I was also like getting my mom up for work, ironing her clothes. Like, yeah, they put me to work. So my grandmother was like, he needs to be a kid. Like,
Yeah.
you know, but I don't think I ever really was.
Yeah. I get that. That's an interesting, I mean, I don't know, I guess what creates that in some people over others. I mean, I'm sure like just necessity at some point, you know, is a factor, but interesting.
I think more than anything for me, it's growing up around a lot of bodies, like a lot of people, and being aware of what people are feeling, and being conscious of things going wrong and trying to balance that energy out, because I was always trying to make things like good, you know, because there was always so much I guess you could say, I guess the best word is chaos. There's just always so much chaos around. So I was just always trying to balance that energy out, you know? So as a kid, it was like checking on my grandmother, making sure my grandma was okay, making sure my mom was okay, making sure, you know, everything, making sure everybody's good, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think more than anything, it was just my care for the people that I love that made me like not so childish, you know?
Yeah. And so church being like the main thing, sounds like mainly for music, wasn't so much for the religious aspect, or was it also something you were into?
It was religion too, because I realized you had a whole congregation of people looking at one book to lead their life, and I wanted to understand what was so powerful about that to make people, the adults around me, be so zealous, you know. So I think for me it was just understanding spirit and power more than anything, and wanting to understand the causal energies behind that, you know, at a very young age. I'm telling you, it was just like certain passages I would be like, oh yeah, something about this is powerful, you know. And then I found that in other books and other religions as I got older. So
You still religious?
I'm not religious at all, but I'm extremely, I would say, if there's anything I align myself with more than anything, is alchemy. You know? But I do use all of these different religions as, you know, a way of getting to the same end.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of, to me, like when you distill what they're all about, there's a lot of great like moral codes and things, and kind of somewhat guidelines that are nice reminders to have when you get away from like the political side of like, I'm this and you're not, and fuck you, and it's my way and not your, like, you know, when you get away from that and you still keep your focus on the important qualities that can come from that. Right. I always like the community aspect of religion. You know, you same kind of thing. You have that common group of people that's always been something I've gravitated towards, is like communities in any regard. That's probably why I love music so much too. It's like when you have just so many people going to see an artist or a band and experience something together, it creates a special kind of energy. Absolutely. Whether that's religion or, you know, any other place you're gathering to do that, you know, and have that kind of experience.
Yeah, it is. One of my mentors used to always call it electric church, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is like, for me, it's not so much just a moral code. It's understanding that there's a way that our society was put together, and there's a way that religion played a huge part in control as well, you know?
For sure.
And understanding that galvanizing groups of people based on belief, you know, is something that a lot of us do in music and don't even know we're doing it, you know? And I think for me, it was just a matter of understanding why people were so blind, like, and followed these things so blindly, you know? Because for me, it's always like, I didn't want to be bound by anything, you know? And because I always felt a spiritual presence, I can always feel like energetically when like, okay, there's something here, you know? But I think the moment, you know, we start defining it and calling it certain things, it does kind of bring it down to the level of control, you know? And I think that it's important to understand how we're being controlled, you know, in order to be open to evolve, you know?
For sure. That's a key word. Yeah. I mean, that understanding, getting to that point of understanding, and then recognizing where you're at and being able to remove yourself a bit and then have a new perspective on, do I keep pursuing this way, or do I now understand, okay, I've taken these things from that and there's some things I don't like about that. Now I'm going to pivot, go onward.
Right. And I think that's the most powerful thing about belief, period, is that, I mean, I think there's something to be said about people that believe in something so strongly and they just stick with that and keep building. I think those people are important, but I also feel like it's important for people like myself who, you know, move through all of the archetypes instead of just getting stuck in one. I'm the provider, or I'm the, you know, victim, or I'm the this, or I'm the that, you know, and moving through all of those different archetypes and understanding that, like, you know, there's a little bit of all of that in all of us.
Sure.
And all the religions kind of pander to one or the other, you know? So I think it's important to challenge your own beliefs and to ask myself, like, hey, I've been believing this for a while. Do I need to change this up? Is it working for me? Is it really helping? Or is it, you know, is it just making me feel safe?
Sure.
You know?
So coming out of church, leading the youth choir, going to school, is that something that, what was like your early work? Remember like your first job?
Well, actually my first work was in music.
Okay.
I worked on this soundtrack for this movie called Master of Disguise.
Okay.
And that was Matthew Knowles was in charge of that at the time. And I wrote the title track for the movie. And so my first check ever was like in music.
Wow.
So after I did that, I was like, I'm doing this. You know, but after my parents found out I was gay when I was like 15, they kicked me out, and then I started finding like regular jobs, and my first job was at Wild Pear.
I don't even know. I can imagine, but
Wild Pear it's basically like if you go to any city like Orange County, like, you know, kind of far out, they have those like shopping malls, kind of like the Block at Orange. That was where it was at.
Okay.
It was at the Block at Orange, and Wild Pear is kind of like the heels and shit that like the racy aunts would wear.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like racy auntie shoes.
Okay. First job was there.
Yeah, and then after that I worked at Guess, and then I worked at the Verizon call center, which was like, that was when I was living in Long Beach, and that shit was crazy because that was the first time I ever did ecstasy, was at that job. Like, it was crazy. That place was fucking crazy. And then I worked at Verizon for a bit, and then I quit. Not Verizon, Kaiser.
Okay.
And then that was 5 years actually, and then I gave that up to do music full time.
So all throughout that, you're still doing music, but
but not at
needing
the
a way
same
to-
level.
Yeah.
Because when I first started, I was definitely like around the labels, and that was amazing because at that time, it was 2000. Well, 1999, 2000, 2001,
Okay.
2002.
So damn near like the heyday of
it
like
was
the top of
heyday. So like when we were recording, it would be at the Universal building in Santa Monica, but it would be like crazy ass fucking studio, super overstaffed, like people just to bring out food, like just crazy. So like I definitely got to experience that, and then I also went through, you know, that early artist development that labels would put you through back in the day.
What was that process like?
So dope. I mean, it was a lot of just finding yourself, really. Sure. Which is like, you know, kind of what I do now with other artists that I develop now is from some of the tools that I was given back then, which is like, in order to really bring forward a sustainable artist, you have to connect them to who they are,
totally,
what their voice represents and all of that. And you kind of have to find their song, you know, and when I say their song, it's not a song. It's like what their life and their experience represents, you know?
Yeah.
And then sometimes that means like, you know, this particular artist needs to be in the gym working out because they have to be sexy, they have to be fly, they have to connect to whatever that energy is, you know?
Yeah.
And for some people it's like, no, you just need to go and live for a couple years and, you know, come back with some heartbreak and some healing and, you know.
Yeah, some life experiences.
Exactly, because that's what I feel like now we're getting more than ever. We're getting a lot of songs and not a lot of artists.
Yeah.
And what I think is interesting about that is an artist, a true artist, will always be able to deliver a song, you know? But sometimes a person might get lucky and write a song that's like way bigger than them, and then you take them and you put them out into the world, and then the world swallows them up because they didn't have a practice to, you know, help them become sustainable through that whole process, you know?
Totally.
So I think artist development is still hugely needed.
Yeah.
I also see the reason why labels don't want to invest in it. Because at that point, when you do put an artist in a position to where they can really move and do what they need to do, they're not as easy to control.
Yeah.
You know. So, unless you breed them that way.
Yeah, I mean, I interned at Interscope for 9 months when I first moved here, and I didn't really get any insight as to like the artist development side or anything like that. I was in like a marketing department, and it just seemed like a basic office desk job to most people that were there. It was very rigid. It was very like, it was the opposite of what I expected the environment to be like at a record label. You know, it was very much just.
What year was this?
2000. I think I moved here in 2008.
Okay.
So probably either 2008 or 2009.
Yeah. So you're talking about the time. All right. I remember when the industry started becoming college kids that realized that they could make money in the industry, instead of like, you know, back in the day when you had really talented A&Rs and people that could like that had vision, as opposed to going to school and learning like the ropes of business, but not necessarily understanding that so much of this shit is like, you know, being able to address the phantom, being able to feel something that isn't there, and like create it, you know. And I think that can be taught too, but it's more of a apprenticeship type of situation that, you know, somebody teaches you their ways through action rather than like, you know, just looking at numbers. And I feel like because everything has become so number driven that it's so science that we miss a lot of the magic. And that's why there's I don't know. I don't want to make it sound like there's not like the most craziest shit in the world happening right now in music, because there is. Like, I feel like we're in a beautiful time for music in terms of like the type of shit that's being created.
Honestly, I look at like everything that's happening right now, like sports. We're seeing like an overwhelming amount of the best athletes we've ever seen in the world, all playing at the same time in like all leagues. And I mean, I watch golf. I'm very into golf. Like, dude, there's like 25 people that are like actively competing for number one in like a tight roped way where you're like, damn, I don't remember it being like this when I was little. Like Tiger Woods kind of shit on everybody, you know, and there maybe was 2 or 3 other people. It was kind of like Michael Jordan at some point in time was just dominating everybody. Now it's tough. There's a lot of crazy competition. I feel the same way about music. I just still feel like it's dominated by people that are more business savvy and technology savvy and marketing savvy, which I get has kind of always been the case, but there's a big gap in what's happening on like the surface level of popular music and then the whole music culture that happens underneath that. And to me, that's where I've lived since I moved to LA, and it's been super vibrant, and it's been very exciting to see how much amazing music has been created throughout this whole time. Even if we're kind of seeing the same thing repeat itself play out in like the mainstream of music. But, you know, I've also been in that same boat of trying to help develop new artists who've, you know, come to the studio as like their first time ever being in a studio before, and trying to teach people mechanical things about microphone techniques and everything on down to finding yourself, finding your sound, finding what you're actually here to speak on. You know, like there's so many important elements that I definitely feel are missing from most people's music, which is kind of been why I resort to just listening to music I'm making more than anything, just to know I have a hand in it.
There's a lot of great music you got coming through here though too. So,
I've been
you're definitely blessed.
Oh man. I mean, shit, honestly, I was playing Nick some of this stuff from our project from Expensive.
Oh, dope.
And it's still to this day to me something that's so special.
It is special.
I mean, I think we had a troubled release as far as like the marketing aspect of it, where it didn't get its due. And I mean, you know, hopefully just that'll be one of those things that in time there'll be more of a way to bring people back to experience that, because it really is a like incredible album.
It was the timing, really. That timing, there was a lot of things converging. And a lot of things releasing and leaving. And I was like getting out of my management situation and like, you know, realizing, you know, through that project. And it was actually one of the intentions. I don't know if I even mentioned it to you guys, but I really wanted that project to reveal, you know, what all of this time had been truly spent on, you know. And that's the reason why it's called Expensive, is because time is expensive, you know. Through all of that life and all of that, you know, stuff that goes into getting to a point where you're ready to make a body of work, you know. And my mom had just passed away. It was just a lot of shit. You know. And like I remember even like the song Go, like that song, I created that song the day when and I mean, I don't speak about it too much, but like that day I never contemplated suicide so clearly, you know, to the point where it was like, I was like, I could really do that, you know? And then I came here and I did that song, and it was literally like medicine. After the song was done, I was like, okay, I can keep going, you know? So in that song is so much energy of like, I got to pull myself up, you know?
That's been, I think, since we made that song, my favorite song. I don't know, it's just the feeling, the energy, something about the second verse on that song is like, it's literally magic. It's the lightning in a bottle, like kind of feeling to me that comes from listening to that album. And I mean, that whole album is just incredibly special, you know?
Yeah.
So,
and I'm glad I got to make it with you guys. And on top of it, it's like one of those things where, you know, I do listen back to it. And I think the most important thing is the people, you know, that were around, that were involved, you know, and, you know, it's definitely a labor of love, that project. And, you know, hopefully we can do some more shit.
Oh, we will. We definitely will. I mean, just it's funny, even sitting here thinking about like the release of that album, doing that show here. That was just, that to me was a lot of elements all finally coming into fruition. Like that was a long history of me having frustration with trying to do these type of projects with like an artist partnership. And JP really having my back 100% to be like, dude, I'd work with this artist Rush. I'll bring you in. We'll do a project together. The way that all of those pieces just connected was so meant to be. And then having that be, you know, started doing the shows down here with Chauncey, and those were amazing. And then we did ours, and it was like out of this world. Like the whole place was just packed out.
Out of that building.
Just the entire thing, people around the front, my neighbors coming out to just peer through the window. Like, I remember that so vividly, and we had such a cool band experience that night. Like, just everything about that was such a treat. And then we kind of turned the corner into COVID, and it was just like a whole different world
and I'm
after that point.
I think, so that was what, 2019?
Yeah, September 2019.
Yeah, and then I went back to Mexico City.
Yeah.
And then I went to Brazil for a month and came back in the lockdown.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What was the connection to Mexico City?
So one of my mentors, and he also managed me at one time, Nacho Nava. Him, the Mustache Mondays Collective, and one of my good friends now, Diego, threw this party that Red Bull, hoping this makes sense. So Red Bull was doing this cross-pollination thing where they were bringing different collectives to different cities. So they brought the Nafi Collective to LA, and they brought the Mustache Collective to Mexico City. Okay. So when we went to Mexico City, through parties, there were different art installations, like all kinds of crazy shit around that town. And they rolled the city out for us, like just showed us the best places to eat, the best places to party. And it was the first place I went in a very long time where I felt the same electricity I used to feel here in LA. Sure. And so something would just kept saying, I need to live here. Yeah. You know, at least for a small amount of time, just long enough to really get wet in whatever it is that's happening here. And I kind of feel like it's still happening. There's been like a crazy exodus of a lot of people that are from LA moving to Mexico City. It's still an international city, so there's people that live there from all over the world. So in my particular neighborhood that I was in, which is Roma Norte, like that area is like a lot of Germans and Koreans and stuff like that. So it's a beautiful place. And it was also the first time I didn't have to struggle. Sure. Which was like, it kind of shifted everything for me. Because, you know, I was still working on projects out here, but living in LA, you know, is expensive as fuck. And I have crazy expensive taste. So it's just like, I can't eat regular stuff. I got to eat crazy, you know? Yeah. So I went out there, and it was just like the first time I could just breathe and just be like, you know, and being able to say no to stuff, which was crazy. Because like people would hit me up from LA and be like, hey, I'm working on this project, can you come down? And I'm just like, okay, well, what's the budget? And they're like, oh, it's this. And I'm like, I'm not about to leave here for that. Yeah. You know? So it was the first time I really got to like, you know, set my value where I felt it should be. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, I've gone through that. I've gone through that personally a number of times. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I've spent so much time, and still to this day, do a lot of work for free, and then it was like doing a lot of work for like the rate that I set, and then discounted versions of that, and being disappointed that I did a discounted rate with people because it just seemed to be something more like, you're asking me for something, I'm giving that to you. You're not giving me anything back in reciprocation.
Right.
I'm burning out because I'm doing this. It's not helping me with my goals and my vision. And I finally have come to realize a bit that, you know, I could change that whole thing around. And now I'm just focusing on, how do I want to spend my time every day?
Right.
What are my goals? How am I doing things that apply to that? Because I've achieved the studio being what it is, so I don't necessarily need to keep working sessions just to get money for equipment, which was really like my long lifetime pursuit. And hopefully by the beginning of like first quarter next year, I'll have everything like fully paid out, clear, you know, just the feeling of like, cool, that's all accomplished. And now it really just opens up the opportunity. Like, this has been something I've really been enjoying. You know, I'd like to be doing these like 3 to 5 days a week just to be able to have conversations and, you know, enjoy spending my time doing this with people I love.
It's so dope.
Know,
and plus it's like, it's almost like you get a real live version of those Polaroids that you have upstairs.
Yeah. That's to some extent what I think is exciting about this, you know, is it's a new way to reconnect with everybody that I've had long relationships with, who've moved out of the city, got their own studio, whatever, their own situation now. And it's less of a need to come here, but it's still about like having a personal relationship with that person, because I care about all these people that I've worked with over all this time. You know, it's not just a music relationship. It's a personal relationship. It's a friendship. It's a, you know, a real interest, for like a real personal connection for me.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's when you do music with people, it's one of the most intimate things you can do.
For sure.
Know? And I think at that level, it's easy to write off past experiences or things that you've had, because when you're so focused on building forward. Yeah. But I think it's really important to think of things in a more secular way, where it's like, you know, if you keep coming back to the places that have always represented you and looked out for you, I think it makes your foundation a little tighter. For sure. So that's why I'll always have love for you and value this place, and, you know,
hey, likewise,
I'll always be down for whatever.
Hey, I appreciate that. So, double back on, there's a few things that I actually really wanted to pick up on, but I think we could stay on music for a second. So, when you're early artist development side of things, you were signed to a label developed from a label?
So I was being developed. I hadn't signed yet, but it was with Epic. Okay. And at the time, it was Max Goose that was like running the shit that I was doing. Okay. And it was with the intention of putting me in a group. Okay. And that group turned out to be B2K. Huh. So that was really like kind of what kicked all that shit off. So, okay. Yeah.
And then where did that all travel?
Well, my parents got scared because the way it even happened, I want to say like 3 months before I ever stepped into the building, my mom asked me what I wanted to do in terms of like after school programming type shit, because my sister was doing gymnastics. Okay. So I said I wanted to sing, and she was like, okay, whatever the fuck that means. Okay, sing, you know? Yeah. But she didn't know like I could sing. Yeah. Until like one day, like I'm in the shower, and it's kind of like that age old thing you hear, like I kept hearing her say, turn the radio off, turn the radio off, turn the radio off. And she busts in the bathroom while I'm in the shower, and she's like, was that you? And I'm like, so she said, dry off and come out. So I dried off. I'm still in my towel, and I come out, and she made me sing in front of her. And I sang I Believe I Can Fly by R. Kelly. Oof.
Hey, great song, though, to sing if you could sing the song. All the other shit around it.
Yeah, you know. But I sang that song and she was crying and she was like, "We're gonna be so rich." And what's called, and every opportunity there was for me to sing, she would tell me to sing. So we were at a family function and she made me sing at the family function. And my cousin's friend was there and she was just like, "Oh, my boyfriend needs to hear you sing." So I sang for him over the phone, and I had a meeting at Epic the next day.
Whoa.
So that's how it happened. And my parents freaked the fuck out.
Yeah.
Because they were just like,
this happened so quick.
Okay. And it was just like everything. They didn't know anything about the business. They didn't know. All they knew, like, everybody was closing in really tight and really quick. And to the point where, like, they had presented me with a contract. They didn't know how to read the contract. So it took them a long time to find a lawyer that they trusted. Once they found a lawyer that they trusted, they saw in the contract there was like a clause for me to be emancipated, and that like sent my parents, because they were just like, "What are you trying to emancipate a 12-year-old for?"
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So like, my dad started getting really, well, my stepfather, he started getting really aggressive in meetings and like, just in terms of who could talk to me, who couldn't talk to me, like during sessions and stuff like that. And so my parents started getting like a reputation around the industry. And it got to the point where we were having a meeting at Universal, and Max found out about it and was like, "Well, what are they offering you?" and this and that. And my dad went off on Max and then went off on the people at Universal. And it came out to, you know, when you turn 18, you have a deal. But until then,
yeah,
you know, we're not dealing with your parents.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, man. That I was going to ask about that, like the involvement of parents, especially like at a young age. It's like, it's such a difficult thing to, I've never worked with anybody that's been that young. Like maybe like 16 probably is like the earliest.
Yeah.
And like at that point I was working like just very few sessions with people who were already even like signed to a label or something like that. So it wasn't so much discovering who you are at that point as much as they are already kind of on the path.
Right.
But I can imagine the difficulties that come with that, especially at that age, like 12 and 13, like all that is so young, and to have to deal with that. And then you have, you know, it's just seeing a lot of the, like parents who've had to navigate the most fucking complicated business ever. Like the music industry, understanding masters, publishing, how all that stuff all works. It's complicated even to this day to take somebody who has no idea about that business and try to break down all those things,
all the different parts.
And then you look at those contracts that are like phone books, and it's just like, holy shit.
Well, yeah, it spooked them. And I think because I was living so many different lives at the same time. Like I was at school being a little baby micro thug because I was gay and in the closet, and it was like it's so fucking weird, you know? So I was living a lot of different lives at that time, and like they started spilling over into each other, and I was very stressed out, need to say
yeah, I mean, it's a
least.
Complex life, man. I mean, it really is a wild one when you think about, like, I wanted to circle back, and you glad you brought us back there, but it's like, just thinking about at that time, being gay, being in Compton.
Well, Watts, actually.
Yeah,
at that
okay.
time it was Watts, yeah.
And navigating life.
Yeah.
I mean, that has got to be complicated as fuck.
Yeah. Just
in your own mind, to be dealing with
yeah.
the things that the world's throwing at you at that point in time.
Yeah, I think more than anything, it was the fact that, you know, starting so young and being that person that's trying to like keep everything together, you know?
Yeah.
And then that already being ingrained in me, and then going into school and then getting friends and kind of being like, you know, the one that put my friend group together and making sure all of them are okay. But then like, you know, still trying to make sure nobody really fucked with me because, you know, I was gay and I didn't want anybody to know about it. So like, if anybody ever like said anything crazy, I had to be 10 times crazier than they were in order for them just to not, you know, fuck with me.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a lot of camouflage, a lot of protection, and it was very exhausting.
Yeah.
And I would say around 14, 15 when I just like was capsizing on everything. I was just like, I just felt like the world was just crushing. I prayed about it, and I was like, please take all the drama away. Like, people started getting shot. Like, it was just a lot of stuff was going on in my friend group, and then with music, like everything. Yeah. And I'll say again, like, not shortly after saying that prayer, I got home one day like at 3 a.m, and my mom was pissed about it. She came into my room in that morning and started like taking all of my shit out, and I was just like, oh, she's tripping again, because my mom used to trip in the most like dramatic, miraculous, magical ways. She was just like, I didn't know how she was gonna do it, because it would always be such a surprise, like, but it was always abusive and always crazy as fuck, so at that particular time I was like, okay, I don't know what's about to happen this morning, but she's on one. So she like took all my drawers out, turned all my shit over, like went through my closet, took all my clothes out of the closet, like peeled everything down, just looking through all my shit. And I'm just like, okay, thinking to myself, like, what do I have in here that I don't want her to find? And I was like, not tripping, because I was like, I don't got nothing in here for her to find. So I go into my cousin was in one of the other rooms, and she was like, your mom is crazy. And I was like, I know. And so we're just sitting there, we're talking and kind of laughing about it. And then it dawned on me. I was like, fuck, I have this box full of letters. And in this box, there was, letters from different girls that would write to me and stuff like that, and friends. And I had one letter that I wrote to a little homie that was like kind of questioning me about, why he never really saw me like going after these girls that were like attracted to me and stuff like that. And I basically told him in the letter, but then I never had the nerve to give it to him, so I just put it in that box. And I was like, oh fuck, she's gonna find that shit and it's over.
And
so she found that box, and then she opened it up and saw it was letters, grabbed all my lyric books, took them into her bedroom and dumped them all on her bed. She got back in the bed and we commenced to going through all the books.
Oh, man.
And I was like, okay, so how do I go in here and get this letter? And so I go into the bedroom, and I seen the letter on the bed, and I was just like, there's some stuff in here that are just thoughts. It's not me. It's not who I'm really like, I'm just,
putting thoughts out there.
And I saw the letter, and I went and I grabbed it, and I was like, this is very personal. I was like, I'm not like, and she calls my stepdad and was like, get it out of his head, Marvin. And so he tackles me to the ground, tries to like break my hand to like get the letter out. I'm trying to eat the letter. It was so fucking crazy.
I can only imagine.
And then I finally just threw it. And then I got up and I went into the room and was like, I said, I can't live here anymore. And my mom went into the room behind me. I was like packing a bag. She knocked the bag out of my hand. I had this little Playboy keychain around my neck because at that time I was a part of this little crump group that and my big homie's name was Playboy, so we all had these little Playboy emblems and stuff like that. So mine was a key, and she made sure that the key didn't fit the door, took me downstairs, made sure the key didn't fit the door, closed the door behind me. And that was the beginning of, you want to talk about madness?
Yeah.
Madness.
Yeah.
They read that letter, found out, went through my whole phone, called everybody in my phone and was like, where's your faggot friend? Da, 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 da.
Wow.
Crazy. And so, and you're talking about like a lot of my friends were my big homies and my little homies, and like some of them banged, and we were all, so it was just kind of like they put me in a fishbowl.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had to fight a lot at that time. I had a lot of friends that turned out to not be friends.
Sure.
It was the
I mean, dude, at that age, that's like impossible for people to have much understanding, like other friends, people at that age.
Oh yeah. It was like, when I talk about, working through like the vitriol of life and just like certain levels of grief and certain levels of betrayal and all of that type of shit. It was definitely like a early lesson on how things can go when you don't move with clear authenticity of who and what you are.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And what it did was it just kind of obliterated the lives I was living, and it was painful as fuck, but it was also extremely liberating.
Yeah. Sounds
very
like
lonely.
It. Yeah.
But liberating, you know.
Those moments can be, though, you know, like when you're going through like the major transitional moments. I mean, that's obviously like probably got to be top 3 in your whole life.
Yeah.
To have that kind of degree of change come is generally a very lonely.
Yeah. And the crazy shit is like that was the first time I think I ever experienced cognitive dissonance in like a real way, where I was living in third person, where it was like my soul had just left my body at some point, and it was just like me watching my life happening. So it'd be like wild shit would happen to me and I wouldn't feel it. It would be like watching it happen to somebody. So it would be like, okay, that was fucked up, but it's happening to me, but I can't feel it, you know?
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until I met my first boyfriend and he put me in my body. Like the moment as he was somebody that I used to dance with, like in the crump world and all of that. And, you know, he was closeted. I was still closeted because I never admitted to being gay to nobody. My mom had called everybody and did all that, but I never like admitted to it at that time. And from the time we found out about each other and started like hanging out, and it was crazy because like we were both crushing on each other and didn't even know it. Like it was just this weird like, you know. And so, like I said, he put me in my body and I would cry every day for no fucking reason. It would just be like, and he'd be like, what is wrong with you? And I'm just like, I love you, you know? But it's like just all these uncried tears and things I hadn't allowed myself to feel, you know, with stuff that went on with my parents and shit. Like, because we went through like crazy court battles and all kinds of stuff. Like, I became a ward of the state. Like, it was really fucking crazy.
Yeah.
You know, really crazy. And so he put me in my body. We were together for about a year, and then he dies.
No way.
Yeah, and it was like in San Pedro. It's fucking. Have you ever heard of Point Fermin?
No.
Okay, so in San Pedro, there's this place people go for like bonfires and everything, and it's like you go through these gates and there's in these cliffs. And it's called Point Fermin, and basically like, people just go and bonfire and drink and do all of that. And it was one night we were out there, and he was like acting particularly crazy and was just like bouncing around on rocks, and one of the rocks cracked under him, and he slipped and he fell and died.
No way.
That shit fucked me all the way up.
I can't imagine.
For a very long time.
Yeah.
And that was when I came out, because at that point, I was there with a few friends that knew about us, and, you know, having to tell his mom, you know, and all of that. And it was our senior year of high school. And it was one of those moments that I had nothing left. Like I had nothing left. I was just like, fuck everything and everybody. And this is what it is. This is who this was to me, you know, and experience it again, that same level of betrayal and just like, you know, having no support and being alone through all of that. And, you know, it gave me a very, very thick shell, and it made me very distant from myself for a long time until, you know, I started going red. I would like black out and be extremely rageful, like, and fight a lot, and I realized I was going to die that way, you know.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I have to fix this. So, you know, I started meditating and started getting heavier into like some of the more esoteric things that I had been interested in when I was younger. And it, you know, gave way to some information that really did help me unlock what was going on within me, and it put me back into myself, and, you know, here I am now.
Yeah.
You know.
Damn, man. What a wild sequence of events.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, and that's like shit, just to high school.
Just to high school.
Yeah.
And it didn't stop getting crazier.
I can imagine.
It stopped getting wild when I was like, wait a goddamn minute. I'm like, something is going on and I don't know what the fuck it is, but I'm playing a part in it some kind of way, and whatever my part is in it, I need to stop it.
Yeah.
You know. So I was just really open and really broken and coursing a lot of energy, and I've always been really strong energetically, but at that time I didn't understand how to direct my energy, and I was attracting a lot of wild shit to me, you know, a lot of wild shit. So it started calming down for me after I started meditating. Once I started meditating, a good 2-3 years into that, once I finally got a little space from the static, you know, that's when things started chilling out, and I started understanding, okay, fuck, this is how I'm playing a part in all of this shit. These are the thoughts that are up here. These are the things that I'm opening myself up for, this consistent tragedy, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then, so from that point, where does that leave you with still making music in any capacity, or?
Yeah, I was still doing music. I was actually working with with two groups. One was this group called For Sure. Both of them were based out of Compton. The other one was Four of a Kind, and we were managed by this guy Vincent Osby, and his studio was in the trailer behind the liquor store that he owned. So he had a lot of respect in the city because he had a CD store in the Compton swap meet like years ago, and so like he helped a lot of people get their first records into that store.
Cool.
And get discovered and all of that. So yeah, I was in these R&B groups, did like school tours with like Power 106 and stuff like that. So I was still doing it, but I was doing it pretty checked out at that time.
Yeah.
Like I was just kind of going with the flow of everything, but I didn't really see a real in through any of that. Even though Four of a Kind made it real close to actually doing some shit, but I pulled out right before we were supposed to make it because I was like, this shit's corny. I was like, I don't want to be known for this. So as soon as like literally we were in a position where we were about to perform our single and give it to Power 106, and we were performing with Kobe Odonis. You remember that guy?
Yeah.
Kobe Odonis, Player Circle,
yeah,
which was 2 Chainz.
Yeah, of course.
All of them.
Yeah.
So we had a show with all of them, and I was getting my hair cut and was like in the chair, and I had already warned my manager, like when I first started working with them, I was like, I'm not going to be doing this very long. I'm doing this to stand in until you find somebody else. But it was going really well, and I knew that moment was like a defining moment because we were doing these shows and we were killing it. Like we were killing these shows, and I was just like, do I really want to do this? Gave him a phone call and was like, I'm not going. And he was like, I understand. And I was like, okay. And so of course all the other group members called me and were like, what are you doing? Da, 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 da. I was like, I told y'all in the very beginning I wasn't going to be doing this shit for long, you know? But I always think back to that moment and I'm like, was it me not wanting to be a part of it because it was corny, or me not wanting to be exposed again, knowing that I was gay, knowing that I was doing R&B music, knowing that I was around these super hyper masculine dudes that were like, you know, Bloods and doing their whole thing, and just like, I was like, it feels fraudulent, you know? So I stopped it and, you know, just started songwriting, and I was doing more electronic stuff at the time and was being extremely enigmatic, you know, so that people didn't really get into me but got into the music, you know. So around that time I met my other manager, Wyatt Barclay, who introduced me to Zach Katz, who brought me over to Beluga Heights, and I was like working over there, writing songs with this girl Sam, and for JR wrote them. And that's kind of what started me back being in the industry, like legit in the industry again.
Huh. Wild, man. What a wild journey.
I mean, it's so much to the point where, like, whenever somebody says we're about to talk about you, I'm like, because I mean, I'm 33 years old now, but it's like it's been a lot of fucking life.
Yeah,
a lot of life.
I think one of the most interesting things to me that I really like is that every time you've had your center line of yourself and you've felt yourself going too far off the path, at some point you just snap back out of that and get back to you.
Yeah.
You know, that's like the most valuable skill I think most valuable tool I've learned about my own life. You know, like it's such a necessary thing when you just get caught up in something that you're doing that, like, I've lived in this building for 11 years. And a lot of those years were like 6-7 days a week, 18 hours a day, whatever it took. And I look back at that like, fuck, I gave up a lot of time. Like, it's been amazing. It's been amazing. Like, it was all necessary to arrive here, and I'm thankful as hell for all of it. But it is also like time going by real fucking fast, and realizing, wait, hold on. Like, I have a lot of other plans in my life that I need to get to. Being in this one room for all this time, as great as it's been to create music with all these amazing people, has to find some form of balance. And, you know, that is such a critical part of all this. And just life in general is coming back to balance when you've gone too far deep in any kind of particular direction.
And I think it's important to fall off the deep end. And, you know, I think we don't know anything until it's over. You know? And ultimately, whether we know our time was valued, we won't know until somebody's reading our eulogy. You know what I mean? So I can tell you right now that you've had an impact on this entire world from this room up here. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of times we have to figure out a way for the world to know it. That way you can maximize and amplify that. But at the same time, it's like, even if it's at the grassroots level, if you're affecting change, you're affecting change. It just is what it is. You know? Yeah.
I mean, for me, you know, that's probably been my downfall, is not doing more to like market it, but it's just never been about that.
Exactly.
So that's also, you know, it's just been something that has been ingrained in me for the love. For the longest time.
And it's also like, I mean, and at the same time, it's almost like a secret handshake. You know what I mean? Like, you know, there's certain names you mention in this industry or in the world, just through your affiliation, it gives you certain access, you know. And the thing is like, you are definitely one of those people. This room is definitely one of those places, you know, where it's like, oh yeah, I recorded over Truth. Oh, you recorded Truth? Oh, okay, shit. Like, you know, there's that commonality that crosses with people, and it's like, fuck, okay, we're on this path together. It's almost like a like I said, like it's like a handshake, you know.
Yeah. Well, I want to keep going on the music path. So you're doing work with Zach Katz, working with those guys. I remember the Beluga Heights thing was huge. JR was killing. Like late 2000s. He was running it. And was that something you were working there as a songwriter? And
I was songwriting. But the whole thing is I was anti-pop, super anti-pop. So I was like writing these songs where it would either just be like hook, 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 but like transition, like crazy transitions and arrangements and like wild shit. And when I played it for Zach, he was just like, okay, this is crazy. I can understand you're definitely an artist about this, but like, he's like, if you would just implement a little pop structure, this could be crazy. And he's like, and I know you don't want to, I can tell, you know, but he's like, just stay here and learn as much as you can, right? And so my first session I had was with Chords, if you're familiar with him. So that was my first session. He was doing the production, and we were writing shit over their tracks, and then send them to JR, and then JR would take what we did and just kind of like edit it. So the first bounce we got back from JR fucked my entire head up, because I was big on storytelling, not just with lyrics, but with progression of like arrangements and stuff like that too. So like I would legit like pick melodies to move through records to like, that was my artistry.
Yeah.
That's still my artistry
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. So when he took my bridge, the first 2 lines in my bridge, took that, looped that 8 times, made that the hook, and then took all my verses away and was like, write new verses. I was like, the fuck? I was so over it. And the crazy shit was the whole entire time we worked there, I didn't see him one time. Literally, he would be in the room right next to us, and like we'd send him records and he'd send the records back. But it was literally like some Wizard of Oz shit. Like he never came out of that room. He never came out of that room. And so I was like, okay, this is fucking weird. But every time he would send something back, the first month of that was torture for me. Because I was like, I love what we did. I hate what he's doing.
Yeah.
I hate what he's doing. And it wasn't until I surrendered to the process a little bit and was like, okay, I can still do what I want to do over here. But while I'm over here, let me try to understand what he wants.
Sure.
That way he doesn't keep sending edits back that I fucking hate, Yeah. So I realized what he was looking for. And I was like, okay, you're looking for the most infectious aspects of what I'm doing. Because you just want this to get lodged into somebody's head. So I'm like, okay, I got you. So then I would create these super, super pop, just straightforward, like, basic structure, AABB, like straight up and down. And then it was like, everyone I would send him, he'd be like, I love this, I love this, I love this, I love this. And I was like, okay, I understand how to do that now. So then that really did help because it gave me a little bit more dexterity for other artists that I work with, because I understand the basic framework of how to create a song that is a good song for somebody. But then it's like, how do we bring their magic into that? You know what I mean? So I did learn a lot there. But I still wasn't Beluga Heights at all. I wasn't that energy. I wasn't Jason Derulo. I wasn't Sean Kingston. I was none of that energy.
Sure.
So, and they never signed me there. Once Zach left there, he signed me to BMG. So that's how that happened.
And then from there, was that just still songwriting?
Songwriting. I'd also started getting into production a little bit more, just in terms of like understanding what production really means, not just making beats, but understanding how to put together sounds and pulling together different elements and, hiring the right musicians and bringing them into the room and, giving them a direction and, just everything that comes with production, And, it was a lot of sessions. It felt like a lot of one night stands, you know what I mean? Like just going in and just this person's studio, that person's studio. Like,
sure.
It was never the same people, you know?
Huh?
And I think that was important too, just in terms of like understanding how to bring myself to these different elements.
Sure.
Because, everybody's looking for something different and people are always not always creating from different ethos, but like most times we didn't always have the same reasons for creating or the same things that we were looking for. So it's just learning how to truly be collaborative, So that it was very beneficial for that reason.
Yeah, it's another like kind of interesting skill developing path you have to go through. You have to understand what that whole world is like and learn to maneuver within that space. I watched a lot of those from the engineer seat. Publishing companies would be booking sessions here, and it would be some random publisher or some random writer, some random writer, some random producer, whatever mixture of 2-3 producers, 2-3 publisher writers could be coming into that, and just seeing and trying to help facilitate the chemistry in that regard, or just watching how horribly out of sync some of those sessions were. Like it was just just an awful call of
It's
like
like a
why would
hookup.
you put but
It's like a hookup.
Yeah.
It's like you go in and you think it sounds attractive, and then
Yeah.
you get to it and it's like everything's off beat and nothing's fitting right, and it's just like, okay, this is trash.
yeah,
You know, and it's learning too when the energy and the chemistry is just not there.
yeah,
And not forcing it.
Yeah.
Just be like, okay, we can be homies. We can just chill in this session.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, this isn't going
yeah,
anywhere.
this is not going anywhere.
And then from all that time, all that experience, you make the transition to being an artist in your own right, creative directing for yourself, for other people, which is kind of where I picked up and met you.
Yeah.
And what's that world been like for you?
I mean, the way creative direction started for me was with one of my mentors who I was actually living with. She was Doriana Sanchez, who was Cher's creative director for 35 years.
Wow.
She, every historic moment of Cher is Doriana. And then Cirque du Soleil, Peter Gabriel, Yes, like that's all her. So the dopest thing was like living with her. She'd be putting together something for Cirque du Soleil, and then I'd be like watching her putting together apparatuses, and then like how she would go from like calling in somebody to help her get this little sketch that she came together with and make it 3D, and then going from there to like showing it to the company, and then like actually creating the thing, and then doing castings for like the dancers or for the different performers, and just putting worlds together,
The whole process.
the whole world.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about me and her relationship is she never held anything back from me. It was always like, if she's having something and she's like, come and watch, and I would just sit and I'd watch and I'd ask questions, and then she started asking me about things, what do you think about this and this? Should these things go together? Or like, what are you interested in right now? Like, what are you inspired by? And I would take little books off her shelf, because she had so many books, like just, and one of the dopest books she had was Manly P. Hall. What is it called? I'm skipping my brain right now. But it was a beautiful book. And the whole entire thing was esoteric, but it was like, it just fucked me up, and it opened my mind up to so many different things visually, understanding like how sacred geometry and all these different things play in like burning things into people's minds visually, which is fucking crazy, but it's like this literally what people are doing,
Yeah.
creating imagery that like goes into your subconscious and makes you, I'll choose that.
Yeah.
It's like Coca-Cola or anything. It's like it's made this way so that it eases its way into your subconscious, and it's a no-brainer when you go to make that decision between Pepsi or this or this or this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she taught me so much. That's how it started, and then I had friends that needed help with that, so I would help them, and the first group that I started working with on creative direction was they. And that was great, because that was not only creative direction in terms of visuals, but it was also helping them with their live show and connecting them to their live show and getting them to the root of who they were as artists, and stripping it back from a more heavy-handed branded vision to who are you, who is they, and giving them the foundation for them to go to where they are now.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that's been more other artists you've been working with. What's been the last two? I guess probably even, maybe it's been before we met even, but because I'm assuming COVID was probably derailing.
Oh, hell no. COVID was a boom town.
Yeah?
I was working like a motherfucker during
Yeah?
COVID. Oh, yeah.
What kind of stuff were you working on through
it
COVID?
was crazy because, like, as soon as COVID hit, for a good month or two, I was down.
Yeah.
Nothing. Like,
Sure. Everybody, the whole fucking world was down. It was
Nothing.
like that first month in March, going into April, and
April.
maybe even early May
by
was.
May?
Yeah, May turned back on.
Oh, yeah. And it was like gutting.
Yeah.
And I started with my good friend Serpent with Feet. He brought me on to do creative for his project Deacon, and so I did that, and then I went on to do Afropunk, and I did Masego, Smino,
Oh, nice. I didn't know you were working with those guys.
Yeah, I did their live performances for Afropunk.
Cool.
So it was dope because it was literally like 3 days, 4 performances. I had to come up with the set design, the put the team together, everything, you know. And it was a pressure cooker in terms of like what they needed and what the budget was and all of that. But like what that let me know is I could do anything, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was dope. It was dope. So 2020 wasn't a sleeper at all.
Then through this year, I'm assuming most time was probably working on your album.
Actually, that project came together so fucking quick. We actually did the project in like 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then I shopped it around to try to find, you know, a label for it, and just because I wanted the support, and the one that made the most sense was Tokimatsu's label, Young Art, because she understood the ethos behind the project. She understood where Fade to Mind came from, and was actually influenced a lot by that label, which is Kingdom's label.
Okay.
Who I did the collaboration with on the album. So pulling together Young Art, Fade to Mind, and then most of that time around that project was doing visuals and just trying to align on aesthetics, really. Like that was the biggest headache behind it, is just making sure everything was aligned aesthetically with Fade to Mind's brand.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And from now, looking forward, what's got you excited? What's like, you know, what music, not music, just life? Where are you looking at?
I think for me, I'm definitely excited to do a few more projects. I definitely want to get everything out of me. I'm actually interested in directing more.
Video or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I did my first video last year, same size shoe for Serpent with Feet. And then, you know, that turned me way on, because I was just like, fuck, this is like producing and writing all at the same time, but just visually.
Yeah.
You know? So I really enjoyed that. So I definitely want to do more of that. I actually want to spend a lot more time creating folklore behind, you know, the Black, gay, queer experience, because, you know, when you're young and, you know, you have to question your sexuality, there's not a whole lot. There's a lot of tropes that are like similar, you know, experiences and people that you run into, like certain people you should avoid when you come out, and you know what I mean? Because there's a way to navigate this world as a Black queer person, and a lot of our mentors died, you know, and there's like the same narratives, but there's not it's not a whole lot of ways to break it down to a young person, like, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do, this is like, you know, the way to stay healthy, and this is like the stuff you should pay attention to, you know. So we definitely want to create some more, you know, stuff for the youth that comes behind this, so that they don't have to fumble in the dark.
Yeah.
With all of this shit.
That's awesome.
You know?
Yeah. Great.
Yes, sir.
Cool. It's been amazing, man.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of new stuff I didn't know anything about through all our time together, and we've talked a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be asking questions.
I'm the same way. That's why I'm trying to learn, you know, how to like be more of a host. For me, like, my main feedback has been to not like talk when somebody's answering a question, like just to even say like, yeah, because like I'm used to doing that, to be active in a conversation. Yeah. And I listen back to these and I find myself sounding like annoying in a way. So I'm trying to just with doing that, you know, like you just want to let somebody speak. Yeah. And if they're going to pause, you don't have to help out with, you know, finding a way to help support, and just let that person go in their thought. And it's a different skill set, you know, to interview somebody, have a conversation, try to figure out, you know, how you can circle back to something if something's going to be too sensitive to talk about how much you want to press on something.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Same kind of thing with how you relate to directing. This has been a new discovery for me.
Yep.
With something that I really enjoy. It's pretty cool to just be able to learn about people. Because so much you can learn from somebody just explaining things in their life.
Yep.
And I hope this will eventually serve as a library of a lot of information for people from all different walks of life who could take things that could be, just beneficial for them.
1,000%. 1,000%. Thank you, brother.
Hey, thank you. Love you, man.
Love you too, brother. Oh, this is cute. And none of it recorded.
No, we're good.